Okay, welcome to the Diversity and Disability Podcast. My name is Mike Kirkpatrick. We're going to be looking at representation of disability within film today, namely how disability has been portrayed, how it could be portrayed, and some of the particular dynamics that go with it. I'll be referencing several academic sources. You can follow along on the outline provided. So, firstly, we want to look at disability as an inescapable element of human existence and experience. Although it is rarely acknowledged as such, disability is amongst us throughout our lives. It's about a quarter of the adult population, according to the Center for Disease Control. That's 1 in every 4 adults out there has a disability of some kind. And if it also, the other realization to have here is that everyone can become disabled, and at some point everyone will become disabled to a significant degree, either physically or cognitively. There's a certain amount of normalizing disability to this fact, and that a quarter of the population has a disability. That lessens the stigma. Disability happens, and that's okay. It's a part of everyday life. It's simply a matter of working with it and advocating it for an inclusive world, and including it in story and film. The point is to make disability less about pity and debilitation and more empowerment, and seeing the story that just includes the disability that we all go through. If disability is acknowledged, it is due to an interrogation. According to Kauser, it's the questioning of the body being anomalous. When seen and represented, a noticeable disabled body is forced to explain what has happened to that body and why. There is no privacy about it, and the meta communication is always, there is something wrong with you. Caricatures of disability within film, such as a blind person being hesitant and unsure in their surroundings, or a deaf person existing in a silent and impenetrable world, do not accurately depict the empowered and regular confidence of blind and deaf people. Blind people are regularly aware of their surroundings, while deaf people do not need sound to connect with the world outside themselves. These caricatures limit the capability of disabled people, according to Marketich. When we look at Snyder, on top of disability receiving excessive portrayals of dependency, passivity, and incapacity, so too do films portray disability in a negative light by framing individuals as revenge-seeking, checking out of institutions and relationships, especially shirking the well-meaning and benevolent care of society because of the pain and anger of disabled people. This is definitely not the full story of being disabled. These are transgressive films that take away the strength and agency from disabled people and remove the much-needed spotlight from society to improve its inclusive practices and realize pity is simple and condescending. So, with that in mind, we're kind of looking at film showing a negative vengeful mindset or pity and dependency and passivity. And these are just really wildly inaccurate and unhelpful caricatures and portrayals of disability within film. One kind of fun example of this contrast, and the main contrast we're looking at here is the medical model of disability and the social model of disability. And we looked at the medical, looks at disability as there's something wrong with the body, we need to fix it. Whereas the social model of disability looks at society and environment and says, no, it's not quite set up to include disability. That's what creates the difficulty. So I found an article from Preston that looked at Finding Nemo, the movie. And so we see those two styles of approach to disability within that film. So when you think about it, parents want kids' movies for entertainment, but they also want a good lesson to be absorbed. They want their kids to be represented well. Their kids with disabilities, their kids from what they're going through. Finding Nemo is an excellent film showing both the medical and social models of disability. In it, we see Marlin, the father of Nemo, kind of represents that medical model When he looks at Nemo's congenitally shorter fin, he's smothering and overly protective of Nemo to the point he alienates him in an argument. In the process of that argument, there are kind of meta communications showing to Nemo that something is wrong with you. And he's internalizing that, and he's not okay with just who he is. Whereas there's another example when he goes to class and he meets some of his classmates, and there's an octopus that has a shorter tentacle, and there's the bloatfish that when they get stressed out, they bloat up. And so they all share these disabilities, these differences, and they take it all in stride, and they find commonality and acceptance. And so that's an example of the social setting showing that there's just acceptance, and we need our institutions and social approach to be that a lot more so. When we look at Brenna, part of the task of any creator of media that endeavors to be inclusive is to get into the experience of a person with a disability and reframe it in their art from a struggle to a strength. To show that a disability may open up other ways of being that are simply just that, another way of being. The insights and sensitivity that come with being autistic are strengths. These are things that need to be celebrated and normalized as a regular experience out in the social world. The point is to show these experiences within stories of various media, to normalize that disability is here and simultaneously does come with challenges, but to be empathized with and just merely understood as story, and to be taken in as part of the natural understanding of the world. The task of the world at large is to learn and alter based on that learning. Changes in curbsides, ramps instead of stairs, silent laser shows for 4th of July, low volume light, low light movie nights, or simply a group of peers candidly seeing and valuing a person with a disability so they too get to be a part of the group. Extending these efforts to film is the good work of being represented well. We need to move representation of disability from pity and difficulty to one of mere story. A story with love, purpose, effort, sadness, relationship, work, and the mundane details that all of us go through. It just has to be a part of story. It has to be represented. It's likely that we will all become disabled at one point in our lives, and 1/4 of the adult population is already disabled. So folks are here. We need to include these stories in film and broader culture. So that's kind of the main thesis there when you think about these things. Thanks for listening to this. I hope it's been some useful perspective. Over and out.